Hello, everybody. My name is Judah, and this is my father, David McNeil.
My name's Dad. Daddy-o.
Daddy-o. And I just wanted to get back in the habit of recording things for posterity, and I don't know, it's fun. So we were talking earlier about nobility, English nobility in particular.
Yeah, they're making kind of a splash in America. You got old the redheaded guy and his wife from America parading around, making the big hoorah. What's his name?
Oh,
Harry. Harry and Meghan.
Harry,
Yeah, and someone asked this coach whether he had met the royalty. He said, "The royalty? Yeah, the royalty. Apparently, they had been in the same building.
Yeah.
The royal family."
He was at the game.
Yeah, what was the game?
Yeah, Harry was at the game. Harry and Meghan were at the game or something. They asked, "Did you
meet the royal family?" He says, "I only know one royal family. That's Jesus, Joseph, and Mary." I thought, good. That's good. Run royal family, royalty. We don't have royalty in America, but we do. We do have class somewhat, and we could talk about that. But in England, the idea of class is very well established, and it is fossilized, and now it's beginning to crumble because people around the world, it's rare now, that kind of formal class, and people may or may not like it, but it's part of the fabric of the English culture, and less as people move into England, but it's there. And you see it if you want to watch The Crown, you see how that is for the royalty. That's the royalty, but the nobility is under the royalty. So you were wanted to know about what the difference is, royalty, nobility, what the ranks of nobility are, and how that works, and so on.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons it came up because you and Mom really enjoy watching those British sitcoms or something, right? And one of them, well, it's not a British sitcom, but
series.
Yeah. The most famous one that all my friends like and Chanda likes, and everybody but me, I think, has seen. What's that? The one we were talking about?
The Crown?
No. Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey. Just finished rewatching the last segment of that.
Was that the movie
episode
or the last episode?
No, the last episode. It's wonderful. The last two are great, especially the women's costumes. That's why I watch it. I mean, it's just beautiful. I'm an artist. I like to see color, and I like to see women dressed right. Beautiful stuff. And you see a lot of emotional interplay there, and they're struggling there. But in the last segment there and the last episode, they've already accepted who they are, and everybody accepts. There's no struggle.
But titles are important. Understanding titles super important to that show, right?
Yes, and in the Downton Abbey, the family lives in what used to be an abbey, was where the monks lived. Like, what do you call that? If it were women, there would be a convent, but it's a
church.
What do you put? Monastery. And back in the 1500s, the country separated itself from the Roman Catholic Church, and they confiscated all of the property of the Roman Catholic Church. And so they gave these monasteries to nobility. And so here, the family, the Crawleys, but they are he is the Earl of Grantham. Earl of Grantham, and he lives in this beautiful castle. It's not a castle, because the castles belong at another level, but it's a beautiful
so to us,
estate.
It would look like a castle?
Ooh. Well, it looks really like a church. Like a big square church in a way, without having any one part of it. The church would have one part where the steeple would go up, but this is 4 parts. It's kind of square. So you see it has a more utilitarian shape and look and everything.
Mm.
So the Earl of Grantham lives there, and I thought at the time I had remembered that the Earl was a lower level, but it's a mid-level nobility.
Mm.
So, uh, and just to get it out of the way, meaning that nobility, meaning that he has been awarded, he and his heirs have been awarded the right to income and ownership and income of certain lands.
Mm. And what would the income typically come from? What would they?
Well, the people pay it. And you see it in these stories. You'll see, well, so and so is not paying, or some poor farmer, they got to kick him out or whatever, or they want to do something. They have to develop. They have to use the land. Used to be for agriculture, generally for agriculture, and there was a rent, and the rent goes to pay the expenses of the nobility, which are obviously high because there's about 6 of them and they dine like earls. And they have a whole raft of people that take care of them.
Yeah.
Those people got to live, they got to be paid.
Yeah.
And all that money comes from the rent on the lands that belong to the earl. And the earl has been given this land either by the king, formally by the king, but sometimes just by the next level. In the feudal system, he would be given by the next level. And folks, I'm not. I may make a mistake here. So don't write your congressman. And don't get on old Jude here.
Leave it in the comments.
But it's kind of like that. Because the system was generally, it was passed down. Those things were passed down. So the king gave it to the duke, and the duke gave another part to the marquis or the marquis, they would say in French, and then the marquis would divide his up to earls, and the earls would divide his up to viscounts or counts, and the counts perhaps to barons, and the last level was the baronet, whom some of you might know if you watched the movie about. I can't remember the name. It was the Dickens thing, where
Dickens book
about the couple in the baronet. His wife had a child out of wedlock, and that was a part of the middle of the plot. But this cop was after, was chasing him down. Every time he talked to the baronet, he called him by his name, Sir blankety blank baronet. He would add baronet.
You're talking about gosh,
right.
the famous Les Miserables. Is that
no?
Oh, okay.
But something like that.
Something like
but he was like that, chasing down, and he would say like baronet, and the baronet. But the baronet was an ancient. He used to be part of the nobility, but it faded out, and now it's just part of class. Now you have other levels of class below the nobility, which you're familiar with: knight and squire. Esquire. Reading. Now I'm rereading Treasure Island, which has Squire Trelawney.
Oh, that's why we started talking.
Yeah, the squire, which just means someone, you see, who's in the upper classes and guess what makes him in the class? He got land and money, and so he has stature, and so he can, in the community, he can make decisions about things. He can be kind of like a justice of the peace if they need someone, but that's only because society just recognizes him that.
He doesn't collect. The squire doesn't collect for land.
Oh, only land that he owns because his dad bought it up, or
like family land. Not
anything awarded to him. See, nobility has been awarded. The king makes so and so the Earl of Grantham. He just gives him a bunch of land that used to be someone else. Gives it to him, And that land, those people that live there have to pay a rent.
Taxes.
Yeah, that system is called feudalism, right?
Yeah.
Feudalism. And it came in 1066 when the French took over. The French took over England and ruled and basically integrated themselves. And so the English language is a lot of French in it, and the culture of English culture is quite a lot of French. And names like Disney, you notice like Disney, it's French. Disney. See, there's a lot in all of those. What was De Burgh? Remember De Burgh, Madame De Burgh? They kept in Pride and Prejudice. The guy was always talking about the lady De Burgh. French. The French were the upper class.
Dubois, De Burgh.
Yeah. I can't think of it.
I never heard that about Disney.
It's French. So, and the French, if they have any name that's like French, and I should come up with them, but I can't think of any right now. They have the upper hand in the class, English class. Now, then the Germans moved in. So the Queen of England, who just died, bless her heart, Elizabeth, her husband, and she was actually hugely German. Her great grandfather, Hanover from Hanover, didn't speak English, but Philip was Battenberg, that is Batten Mountain, Battenberg, and they decided that was too German for the time. They were at war with Germany, so they decided to go with Windsor, which is more French-like.
Where did Windsor come from? Don't know.
It's secret. I'm from the windy side of the mountain. I don't know.
But I mean, they just pulled it out of a hat. They didn't.
No. It was around. It was where they lived, and I think they used that to. It was one of the castles. They used that as a family name. If I'm not mistaken. So, but Battenberg should have been the present King Charles III. Should be his family name, Charles Battenberg, but they made it Charles. They have the right to do all that, And when he signs his name, he just signs what? Charles. Charles. King now Charles. He says, well, he just puts Charles R. Charles R. Rex King. But Charles, all the nobility, they just sign, and royalty, they just sign their name, Charles or Ted. I figure you know who I'm talking about. No, they really do. You can see when the famous letter where Edward VIII gives up the kingdom. He just signs it, Edward. That's it.
Ed would be certainly easier than putting down Elizabeth.
For sure. Liz. But you have remember. But now that we're doing this kind of academically, we'll say, remember, royalty. That's different. Royalty is it's a level above nobility. It's the monarch and the monarch's family.
Gotcha.
King and the queen, princes. And the title of duke goes in there somewhat too.
Is it kind of sort of straddles royalty and the nobility?
Well, duke, because you have old the guy we were saying, Harry. I don't know. I think I'm not sure he gave up his title, but at one time he was Duke of something, Duke of Cornwall, I think. Duke, and Charles III, the king's consort, kept lady, not the queen. What's her name? Camilla, is a duchess. Duchess. So you have dukes and duchesses in the royal family, and then also that's part of the nobility too. Duke is the highest level of nobility. Duke. So the king can award somebody to be the duke of this. Then this duke. What did we say before? Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, Count.
And then What was the one we were talking about? The that's
Baronet,
no, that is in the
Esquire.
Esquire. Yeah.
Yeah, that's down. So you have knight is awarded to people for service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Service and as I understand, generally they become automatically members of some society. So you have Knight of the British Empire. That's the Beatles. Each of the Beatles. Knight of the British Empire. It's a society. Knight of the Garter. Knight of the Knights Templar. That's something else. But it's some society.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then under that you have the squires. But that's not award. That's awarded by the society. The society kind of says.
Did they elect them?
No, it's just it's like we in America imagine just what titles do we have for class? Because we call everybody Mister. There's not a person it's not a man in America that if he goes to the store, they'll call him Mr. Smith.
Except for priests, we'll call him Father.
Okay, so priest, Father this, and Reverend this. Okay, so we have professional level
titles,
like doctor. That's the main one. Doctor this, doctor this, and professor this, and professor is not just anybody that teaches. It's a position you hold after a long time and are awarded in college. So professors are very important. So doctor, professor, but these are all professional titles, right?
Yeah, and
they're not class titles.
But American class, I think, has way more to do with profession than anything else.
Role, the role you play, that's for sure. And there was one time I realized we do have a class, a favored class, which is against the Constitution. Now, the Constitution says you cannot award a title of nobility or special status to anyone.
Okay.
For tax reasons or anything else, but we do. Middle class, the middle class.
Yeah.
And our beloved President Obama introduced that when he said middle class, we're all supposed to stand up and say middle class. That's it's special. It's below upper class. It's above the lower class, but it's special. It gets if we're hurting the middle class, then we are sinning. So we have some sense of class, but it's fluid in America. It changes.
And it is strange, though, that the middle one, maybe it's not so strange, but the middle one would be the one that's heralded in our country.
Why?
Well, because of what do you mean, why?
Why is it?
Well, because hatred for the top, jealousy for the top, and disdain for the bottom.
Plus, they got the most votes.
Oh, that's true.
They got the most votes and the most money.
That's the biggest group.
Yeah, and the most likely to kick you out of office, put you into office, cause your name to be muddied or lifted up. It's the middle class. That's why they're worshipped, because who can make you and break you? The middle class. Not the 1%. The 1%, they're all toadies. The rich people, they're always, I don't know why, but they're always sucking up, except for Elon Musk. But the 1%, they're always, kissing, kissing up. I don't know why. I guess because they don't want the business to go away. The lower class, people just ignore them, period.
Well, there is the political class, too. I mean, just in the sense that in talking about the middle class, the only prestige they get is awarded to them by the political class. Without the political class, without their need for that voter bloc. And so really, it really just there isn't any kind of award. We don't get land or anything for being in the middle class. However,
we get some tax breaks, and recently we get a check every now and then from the Democratic Party. Whenever they feel magnanimous with other people's money.
But it does seem that the political class
Yeah.
If you're a politician,
Yeah.
there is a certain amount of royalty or a
Now,
certain
where
amount.
would you put like the fourth estate? That is the media class. Where would you put them? The media.
That's a whole new.
It's
That's
a
a
whole
whole new
different thing.
genre, a whole new
Yeah.
entity in our ecosystem.
And see, they're not treated
Human
in the
class.
sense. The only respect they get is that they're listened to,
Mhm.
or not. You know,
Well, let's see. There is the
they're-
interesting thing of being when if you are listened to, you do get. It's almost as if you're afforded a certain space,
oh yeah,
like and it's better than land in some ways these days. You get an audience, and the audience is much more lucrative than than
yeah. Oddly, what differs with them is that they can be extremely popular, like Rush Limbaugh,
Mhm.
but you can also castigate them. You can hate them openly.
Oh yeah.
You can't do that with like nobility.
Mm.
It's you can't hate or say horrible things. I mean, that's the whole point about class. The higher you
Mm.
get, the less you can really say about them, or
Yeah.
do, to attack them, their reputation or anything. But it's true about like I guess anybody in the media or stars or anything like that, they have a certain attention. They get a lot of attention.
Mhm.
It's sort of like class. It's just a different way we sort things out in America.
Mhm.
It works differently. I'm not going to say it's better, but we did leave it specifically, explicitly behind
Yeah.
when we with the Constitution. We said there are no titles.
Mhm.
The king, the president, we call him Mr. President, not
Mhm.
Your Highness, Your Majesty,
Right.
Mr. President. And the Bible says to honor the king. So, and I have been I've taken that to heart. I realize I don't always honor the king, and I should. We need to honor him, even though he may not be somebody we like, but we do have a certain respect for people. And if any big politician showed up, that our senator or governor, generally we would respect them and say, Mr. So and so, Senator
Mhm.
so and so, even though we don't agree with them. But class in America is it's a different thing. In
Mhm.
England, it's old, well known, stratified. You grow up with it, you practice, it, and without it, you wouldn't know really exactly how to place yourself and the people that you serve, and
But
where you are.
do they still have nobility in England?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Now they don't have as each one of them doesn't have as much money. They've got very high taxation rates. So it's not like it used to be. The people that bore all the taxes were the middle and the lower classes,
Mm.
but now everybody, all the landowners have to. Nobility, they pay a lot of the taxes too, and they suffer. And if they're not in business, they don't do too well. So basically, they none of them just sit back and tell the
Yeah.
serfs to go out and reap the corn and bring them,
Yeah.
the money.
They
They're in
still
business.
they have to develop their land and
Yeah,
stuff like
do
that.
other things. Yeah, get into
Invest
yeah,
in this and that. Yeah.
yeah. But they
Interesting.
used the money that they had when they to get into business.
Yeah.
That keeps them going.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing like that. I know a lot of them. It's famous that sometimes all of they're left with is the house they live in,
Yeah.
which is a big, nice house. You know what they do is they open it up to tours,
Oh,
and that's how they make money. Lots of money.
that's a
You
good
come in and
idea.
you look, this beautiful place and all this old art and
Yeah.
the furniture and everything, and
Yeah.
pay them, and they get to talk to the real Earl of Grantham, and so on. I know Bob Rose, my friend, has been up in Scotland a lot, and he and his wife Susan have been and seen these
Yeah.
castles, pay to go in and see them and look around. It's a lot of history there. And so it's worthy. There's still things that are with us that have good memories, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I do think the same reason you wanted to, and part of this is working, and part of this I just like talking to you, hearing about these things, and we wanted to work out some of these things because you're gonna put something together for my kids and Evangeline's kids and Maria's kids to kind of, and for people that you're tutoring and stuff for to know about the. You thought it was important to know about the titles and the system of nobility, especially as we get into literature.
Yeah, if you're going to read any of Dickens or read any of those things, it's good to know. And see, and like you say, if you see anything on TV that's got, so what is that all about? Otherwise, it doesn't make much sense. Yeah. And I want to train people, so because one day I myself want to aspire to being dean of Mitchell Village. It's a special. You know, Billy Rich, yes. Dean means the oldest guy, right? Okay, like the dean. I didn't know. Doyen is the oldest lady. Dean, but Billy Rich lives down the street there. He's about 5 years older than me. And he has been living here off and on, like me, since about 57, 58. And I have been here since 59. So he is the dean of Mitchell Village, and I'm waiting for the day in which he calls me up and says, we're going to have a little ceremony, and you will be the dean of Mitchell Village. But I do want to have a like an association, a community association. Yeah, I think we should. You know, and maybe I could be just president of the Mitchell Village Association. no land, no rents or anything like that.
Maybe get a corner in the library or
something. But it'd be nice for the kids to know something about it. It's part of history that, and people don't know much about history, and it's a framework for understanding history.
Yeah, I wish I had known. I think my understanding of Treasure Island would have been hugely, not hugely. I think it would have been enhanced by knowing.
Oh yeah, why are they doing? Yeah,
I do remember thinking, how is this? Who is this guy? How is he? He can't be the mayor because
there's no town.
Well, and he's leaving for a good amount
of
time.
True.
So who's taking care of
That's
whatever?
True.
So I thought
but you could tell. But you tell he had two things that were important. He had money because he paid for the ship, right?
Yeah.
And
Service.
he had what do you call that? You know, he had authority.
Yeah.
Because when he spoke, he had service too.
Yeah. He had.
So the guys who helped him out.
Yeah. They were service.
But Israel Hands was actually one of his.
Was he?
Yeah, I just found out about it. Yeah. Sorry, dude.
Ooh, spoiler alert. Well, thanks for joining me, Daddy.
It was great. It's always great
talking about these things.
You're a good talker, a good listener.
DeQuan, Eric says, Judah. Kate, who lived, I think she lived in England or Scotland for a while. She said Windsor Castle was a favorite residence of the Queen. That's why.
Yeah.
Or maybe because. And she said knights are hugely military.
Yes, you're right.
And she said the knights have special service at St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you, Kate.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And Bilal, Malik, thank you for liking the video. And stay tuned. We may do this again.
All right. And I'll bring my crown next time.
Ooh.